Come join me as we paint this autumn-inspired covered bridge. I share with you my very own line drawing that you can print for free. You can use it to trace or just use it as a reference. And in the end, I'm going to share with you how to add a little bit of detail using this micron pen and this Uniball Signo pen. And if you don't have these pens, or you feel uncomfortable using these pens, you don't have to do that part. One of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of masking fluid. I just have a few little areas that I want to protect. I take my smallest brush, I kind of roll it in some soap, kind of helps protect that brush from that masking fluid, kind of helps it from getting ruined. And I'm just taking that and just kind of placing it in my little fenced area. I really don't need to use very much of this, just in a few little locations. Now you don't have to use masking fluid if you don't want to. It just makes this process easier. I can just work on that background and not worry about the paint getting on the things that I wanted to keep white. So I just kind of put this just nicely in a few little spots. I'm taking my number 8 round brush and I'm just kind of wetting a little area here where I'm gonna add some little background trees, and I want them just to be kind of soft. It's going to dry very pale, and I want those trees in the background just to kind of look like they're far off in the distance. And I'm using a little bit of yellow ochre here. We're going to use just a little bit of olive green. Just kind of tapping it in, letting it kind of melt into that yellow ochre. Just putting it in a few places where that color might kind of peek through. And just kind of dabbing in very watery yellow ochre, adding in a little more water. I just kind of want to soften that up a little bit. Not worried about any detail here, I just want it to spread softly. Just taking a little bit of water, I just kind of want those trees just to be a little more pale at the top. We'll end up doing what's left up there, the sky, in the very end. Taking a little more water, we're just going to put in some of those little bushes. I'm kind of working on this area right now so that those trees in the background can dry before I start working on the bigger trees that are in front. I'm taking a little bit of my burnt umber, just placing in that little road. We just have this little grassy area that kind of comes down to where the rocks meet the water. So we're just going to kind of work on our greens for right now. I want all this just to kind of look nice and soft. We can add in more layers of color later on, but we're just kind of trying to get just a little placement there of some of our colors. And to add a little variety, I'm adding in a little bit of my sap green. Kind of helps that olive green have more than one tone in it. Taking just a little Moonglow. Now that my trees in the background are dry, I'm going to start working on my trees in the front. Just kind of place some water there so all my colors kind of blend in there, kind of mix on the page. I'm taking some of my Azo Yellow. You can't really see that part of my palette, but I'm using my Azo Yellow Medium. I want the trees in the front to be more vibrant. Taking some of my permanent orange. Just kind of see how it mixes on the page. Some of my yellow ochre. We don't want any detail of leaves, it's just everything's kind of soft focus. Letting that permanent red deep just kind of mix with all those other colors that we put in there. There's really no right or wrong here on how you want to approach these trees or what colors you want to use. You pick the yellows and the oranges and the reds that you have. I just tend to work with the warmer tones because we're dealing with fall colors and they tend to be kind of a nice glowy warm color. Now we're just going to approach this other side and these trees exactly the same as we did before. I have a few other colors on my palette, but those I used for a previous painting, and I just wanted to kind of continue using the colors that were on this palette, but I'm not going to use every color that you see there, but I did list all the colors I used in the description. My little swatch above was kind of the colors that I was going for. I didn't use all of those, but kind of just helped me remember what colors I wanted to use and what they look like after they're dried. I'm just putting a few little brush strokes that kind of look like the leaves are kind of popping up there. I'm just kind of adding a little more depth into a few areas while I wait for those trees to dry. I'm taking some of my Moonglow, and from another palette I had a little bit of Paynes gray. I just kind of wanted to make my Moonglow look a little more gray and not quite so purple. But I just kind of like using a little bit of that Moonglow because when it dries it kind of gives off more than one tone, and it makes a very interesting fun and easy way to make rocks. Just adding in a little bit of brown, giving those rocks some interest. And right now they just kind of look like blobs, and that's totally okay. We're going to add just a little more definition later with some shadows, but we're just kind of getting them placed in there. can't really see very well where my rocks were drawn, and that's totally okay. I actually just kind of drew the rocks there just as a kind of a placeholder. You don't have to go exactly to what the drawing was, and just kind of go with how you feel and how you want it to look. And I kind of wanted those rocks to be just really soft and not too much detail to begin with. I'm just adding some water into my water. We're just going to add some of those fall colors as a reflection into the river. Just adding those colors that we had in our trees. I'm kind of tilting my board up so those colors can just kind of run down. Just helps those colors kind of melt together. Kind of gives the river the illusion of just kind of flowing. Just kind of softening out some of the colors that didn't mix quite enough. Just adding a little more vibrancy in there. There's no real set rule here. That's kind of the nice thing about doing landscapes, is that they just can be soft and flowy. We don't have to worry about detail. We just kind of want it just to be peaceful and soft. Now it's up to you how much color you want to add into that river. I just decided to add just a little more color in there. And just for a little reference, this painting took me about an hour and a half to do. So this is obviously edited and it's kind of sped up a little bit, but just so you know how long this painting took me to do. And now we're just going to start adding in some shadow and a little bit of detail to our rocks. Hopefully they'll start looking a little more like rocks. Still not really detail per se, is kind of creating that illusion of depth, of shadows. Just kind of adding a little more color to some of the places to kind of give my depth. One layer of color is never enough. We always want a couple of layers at least, sometimes 3, to give us our variation in depth and just the vibrancy in the areas that we want more vibrancy. I took a few blues from another palette, and I've got a little bit of Prussian blue and a little bit of indigo kind of mixed together, and I'm just adding in a little bit of blue into my river. Just want it to start off really watery. That darker color just kind of melts into the water. As the colors soften, I just kind of add in a little more color, and it's okay if that blue kind of starts turning green when it goes over the yellow and the orange, because we do have some of that green in the grass and in the trees, and it just kind of creates that look in the reflection of the water. I took some of my Paynes gray and Moonglow mixture. I'm going to just start working on that covered bridge, and we're going to start with kind of the interior where it's a little bit darker than the rest. The outside of our covered bridge is going to be white, and so these little areas that we're doing dark will just really show how it's shadowed in there. I'm not worrying about this being perfect. Not every little opening is going to be exactly the same. If I kind of flub up in a few little areas, that's okay too. It's kind of freeing to be painting something that we're not worried about all that detail. As you know from some of my other tutorials, I do tend to concentrate on detail, and a lot of times when I don't need to concentrate on detail. So it's just fun doing this one where I'm just letting the colors flow and not worrying about everything being perfect and every window or opening looking exactly the same, and not 100% worried about my perspective. I mean, I did work on my perspective on the covered bridge, but if it's off just a little bit, that's okay. Usually old covered bridges are a little bit saggy in places, and so it's just really nice to not worry so much about the perfection of it and just enjoying the freedom of painting. I'm working on a new set of greeting cards, and this one is going to be part of that series. And the painting that I did just prior to this one was a cute little squirrel on a pumpkin, and yeah, I had to think a little more about detail of the squirrel, and so this one is just so fun to do because I don't have to think so hard. I'm taking off my masking fluid. Everything is dry, so I don't have to worry about smudging anything. I'm just gonna get all that off with my eraser. Now I use Arches 100% cotton paper, and it works very well with masking fluid. I have used other brands of paper that are still good quality papers that do not do as well with masking fluid, but I have never ripped the paper once using arches. I'm just taking some of that watery Moonglow Paynes gray mixture, and I'm just kind of adding in just a few little shadows. It just helps us see some of that, the form of the covered bridge. Just adding in some of that Moonglow to kind of add that shadow where the tree is kind of overlapping and kind of shadowing the roof of the bridge. I'm just taking that Moonglow mixture, extremely watery, and just kind of adding in just a little bit of that, the hint of the boards on the bridge. Just using my #1 brush here just to kind of add that little hint of detail, just building up some of my shadows. We're just going to put barely any detail into these trees. They're kind of going to look a little bit, at least what I'm trying to go for, is a little bit of like a birch tree or an aspen. And so we're just putting in just a little bit of color. They're not really a focal point. At least the trunks aren't a focal point. We want that foliage and the bridge to be our focal point. Just going to add a little bit of shadow in the back of the bridge where those trees are creating that shadow. We've got one little bush out front here, so we're just going to kind of add in those bright colors. We've got our yellow ochre, and then we'll add in some of our orange and our red. Again, just making it nice and soft, letting those colors blend on the page. Just kind of deepening a little bit of the shadow in the rocks. kind of forgot to add some of our greenery there that you can see through those little openings to the trees behind. This is the part of the painting where we're just adding in kind of the last of our details, and now I'm just going to put in a very watery sky, kind of add a little water there to kind of soften that edge. I wish my painting had a little more sky in it. I love doing skies, but we just have a little bit at the top there. Just taking my tissue just to kind of soften the edge around the trees. Adding in our branches and our little bush. Can't forget our fence. Just the slightest amount of shadow. Just trying to add a little more movement into that water. I've got a Sakura jelly roll and my Uniball Signo. I'm going to kind of see which one works the best here. I'm just going to add a little bit of that white, make some movement and some kind of highlights in the water. If you don't have one of these pens, you could use white watercolor or white gouache, or you could just leave it out altogether, but I just love kind of adding in a little bit of a little sparkle look, a little highlight and movement. And so far the Signo is working the best, so I'm just going to stick with that one. I'm not going to worry about the jelly roll. And now I'm going to use a little bit of my micron. This is a 005. It's very thin. I'm just using it really lightly. I'm just kind of skipping across the page and just letting a little bit of that pen kind of add to the detail of the rocks. It's almost like a little scribble. I don't want any real defined lines. I just kind of want that hint of detail. I'm barely putting any pressure on it. I'm going to just use it a little bit on the bridge, not too much. The part of me that loves to draw could just go crazy here and just add pen everywhere, but that's not the look I'm going for, so I just have to really just mindfully, think about where I'm putting the ink. I don't want it to really stand out. I don't want you to really notice that I used pen. And there you have it, your autumn-inspired covered bridge. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, that you learned something new, that you tried something new, and that you're willing to give this tutorial a try. I'll see you on the next one. Happy painting, everyone!